Good morning, Pastor Dan.
Good morning, Pastor Brett.
And good morning, Pastor Todd.
Todd.
Good morning, guys. Glad to be here.
Welcome to episode 4. Is this episode 4?
I think it's episode 5.
Episode 5 of
It's episode 5.
two
And we made it special this week.
Yes.
Episode 5 of 2000.
Not only is this 2 pastors in a pod, this is 2 pastors in a pod with Todd.
That's right.
That's what we're naming
That's good.
this episode, for sure. For sure.
I like that, Brett. That's
Well, how you guys doing?
I'm good. I got up in time to get my coffee and eat breakfast.
That's good.
And Pastor Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. The sun is shining now. When I came in, it was snowing, and I looked at my watch just to make sure that it was like towards the end of April. But it's April in the mitten, right? I was going to say April in the D, but we're not exactly in the D. So
that's pretty funny. All right, well, hey, let's jump right into this with our first segment, everyone's favorite. Don't waste the shutdown. I want to know, and Pastor Dan, we'll start with you. All right. Yep. I want to know what you have done over this past week or two in an effort to not waste the shutdown or not waste the stay home.
Yep. We've been doing a lot what we've been doing for previous weeks. We went out on Sunday after Hansel Church. Hansel Church every Sunday morning, 10:30. If your last name is Hanselman and you're within my immediate family, you can attend.
Are you guys still dressing up for Hansel Church?
That was just Easter. We actually got dressed up in our Easter
But I see you with a tie on every time you're, doing your message now. So I don't know what that's about.
Stepping it up, man. Stepping it up. So anyways, we went out. The forecast on Sunday afternoon was supposed to be like overcast and rainy, and it was like clear blue skies and sunny and somewhat warm. So we went out, we hit up the metro parks. So we did that. My kids have found a new TV show that we've been watching at night. This probably, I guess it's okay. Storage Wars. It's on Amazon. Yeah. We'll watch Storage Wars. So.
That's awesome.
Yep. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's
an insight.
I used to watch that and Shipping Wars, where they would like ship large, unusual items like across different states, and that was a fun one too. I really liked that one.
That tie into the ones in Texas where they, build a house out of a shipping container or something.
Is that a show?
Yeah, it is a show. I don't know what it's called, but I've seen previews, and they just turned a shipping container into a house.
Is that like the end timers? Is that like the doomsdayers people?
That's awesome. That is crazy. Well, that's cool. And how about you, Pastor Todd? What have you done over the past week or two in an effort to not waste the shutdown?
Oh, mine's still going. Like Pastor Dan said, we're eternally essential. So I'm still doing church work, and I'm in the midst of my theology class in seminary for my second master's degree. This is the last one. I'm not crazy like Dan, where I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go get a doctorate. No, this is just proving more and more that I have no desire to go on. Been doing that, hanging out with the kids, finally started getting my workouts going
nice.
With my bad knee.
Are you doing Krav Maga still, or?
Huh?
Are you doing any Krav Maga?
A little bit, yeah. So I got one of those Bob punching bags, but mine has legs and arms.
Oh,
so
really?
I can, break their knees and break their arms and stuff too with it. So it's
very nice. For my son, for his birthday a couple of months ago, he started karate, probably in the fall, and so we got him like an inflatable punching bag, and it had like a water base to it. Yep. Well, that lasted a whole week and a half. So, and he destroyed the thing. So I think that's the next move, is to get him one of those Bobs. So
I got one. You let me know and I can get you a wholesale price.
Excellent. I'll hit you up then. So no pun intended.
Yeah, I've just been doing that and hanging with the kids, and we've been working on wife projects in the yard. She loves doing projects in the yard. So we've been working on the weather has not helped, but building a greenhouse and stuff like that. Cool. So she finished up some stuff in the treehouse I built for the kids, and So it's one of the benefits of living in the country and being automatically socially distanced. You have space to do these things, you know.
Yeah.
I got to go out on the shooting range still, so.
Yeah.
Ooh, very nice.
Nice.
You can't do that in your backyard?
I can. Yeah, it's right
okay.
back there.
Oh, that's what I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got my own shooting range. I got a 150-yard shooting range in the back.
Very nice.
Dang, that's so cool. That's so cool. Well, it sounds like neither of you have wasted your shutdown this week, which is good.
What about you, Brett?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about your workouts because it just makes me feel bad. So
He pushes cars up and down the street. He literally does that.
Like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. That was
cool workouts here.
No, I've been getting ready. Next week for me is finals week for school. So I've really been spending a lot of time studying and doing school, which has kept me busy. The weather was nice yesterday, at least, so I got out and got some work done, so that was nice. Did work out, which was super nice. Hold on, I just lost you guys on my screen here.
I'm here.
Sorry.
I'm here.
We're back. No, it was
Okay,
just
good.
yeah, something popped up on my
You must
screen.
be using a Mac or something. I don't know.
I am actually.
Exactly.
I'm using my wife's computer, so that's possibly why. She's getting like 900 texts as we're talking. But yeah,
now you can read them all. So
yeah.
it's true. It's most of them. I don't even know what they're talking about, but that's neither here nor there. But no, I've been getting outside a lot of school. I've been staying busy. It's been good though. I'm not eternally essential like you guys, so
You are eternally essential too, Brett.
No,
you can be eternally essential at my church if you want, if Dan doesn't want to.
You are eternally essential here at HCC.
I'm just playing.
Eternally required or demanded. Yeah.
There you go. It's been great though. So that's good. It sounds like none of us have wasted our shutdown, and hopefully none of our viewers are either, as there's a lot of things that you can do during this time. All right, hey, next up, we have a new-ish segment that we started last week. This is a segment called You Can Only Choose One. It's very simple. I will present you guys with a couple of lists, and of the items within the list that I give you, you can only choose one to keep for yourself. And I've come up with two. Lists. I think Pastor Dan has one. And Dan, you can present yours after my list. All right, so here's my first one. Pastor Dan and Pastor Todd. There have been some very popular sitcoms over the past 50 years. Between these 6 sitcoms, you can only choose one to watch for the rest of your life. Which do you choose and why? Here are your options. Seinfeld, The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family, or Friends. Pastor Dan, I'll let you go first.
I grew up in the era of Seinfeld. I don't think I'll ever get bored of Seinfeld, so I'm going to have to stay with Seinfeld.
Because you grew up in that time when it was on?
Yeah, I absolutely love Seinfeld.
You really just dated yourself, by the way.
What's that?
You just dated yourself.
I know. I know.
We're like our parents, when they would talk about MASH.
Yeah. Oh,
And Todd,
all in the family. Yeah.
There you go. Pastor Todd, what do you got? What's your answer?
Oh, man. What was that list again?
You got Seinfeld, The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family, or Friends?
Boy. I probably would go with Friends like Dan. I grew up in that time, and that was when I was in college and then coming out of college, so that'd probably be it. I'm a lame-o. I didn't really like The Office. My wife and daughter love it. And then I never watched the Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family.
Yeah.
I just watch cop shows where they, beat people up and arrest them. So
if I added the show Cops in here, would you have picked that over?
We're on a new one. We're on Live PD now. So
I love Live.
I've seen clips of that. That show is phenomenal.
Yeah, we're on Live PD every night. They're like, "Can we watch Live PD?"
Yeah.
We're like watching these people get arrested and the drunks and
Yes.
So we have Live PD on at the Evans home, and then we have Storage Wars on at the Hanselman home.
we're really deep into spiritual stuff.
That's right. We're doing a good job with our families, raising them up in the way of the Lord. So
that's pretty funny. I'll say this: I would say like a month or two ago, I'd have been like The Office, man. I think The Office is the best of those shows. but I just started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's hilarious. Like, if you haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you got to check it out. It's very funny. That's what me and my wife have been on lately. That's what we have on. We're not live feeding here.
Isn't that the Andy, the SNL guy? Andy, I forget his last name.
Yeah. I'm blanking on his name.
Is it Sandberg or something like that?
Yeah. And then he's on there. Terry Crews is on there.
I was going to say Terry Crews. All I think
that's the guy that's jacked, right? He's just
big jack dude. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good show. All right, cool. That's the first one. Here's my second one. In the great state of Michigan, we get a heavy dose of the 4 seasons. Sometimes we get all 4 in one day. Each season has its benefits. Fall and winter give us Thanksgiving, Christmas, and football. Spring and summer give us the beach, boats, and baseball. Of the 4 seasons, you can only choose one to have 12 months out of the year. Which do you choose and why? I'll let Pastor Todd go first this time.
Oh, that's easy. Summer. I hate winter. I don't like fall because it's going into winter. I only like spring because it's going into summer. So I am all summer. I am all shorts all the time. Totally fine with that. I love being outside. I love going out in the snow, the sun. I could care less about snow. But I quit asking God because I asked him lots of times to move me south, and every time he moves me north. So I quit asking. Because I don't want to end up in the UP. I don't want to follow Jeff Meyer up to Cedarville.
Oh my goodness, that's too far north. Too far north.
And Pastor Dan?
If you would have asked me like 2 or 3 years ago, I would have easily said fall, and I think mostly because that's football season. So if you could guarantee me football for 12 months out of the year, then I would say fall, but that probably wouldn't happen. And probably the last 2 or 3 years, I've become more of a spring person. So I like spring, but I think the reason why is because it's heading into summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I kind of chose all 3 seasons right there, 3 of the 4. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say spring right now.
I think I'm with Pastor Todd. I think I'm a summer guy. I love the summer. I love the beach, all that stuff. So, and yeah, winter's just too long here in Michigan. So when summer comes, it's go time for me.
There you go.
We don't really get spring or fall.
That is true.
Go from winter to summer, from summer to winter.
Like I said today, it's April 21st, and it was snowing out driving in. So
yeah, I was seeing the flurries, and I'm going, come on. And I got up, there's snow on the roof, and I'm like, are you kidding?
Yep.
That's Michigan for you.
Yep. All right, I've got a couple of choose ones for you guys. So this one is for Brett. Brett, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so this week it is the Lions Super Bowl week. It is the NFL draft week.
Yes.
And so this question has to deal with that. Here is the scenario. You have the choice of becoming the GM of one of these following 4 teams. Now, with that being said, not only are you going to be the GM of this team, but you have to move there and live there as well for 1 whole year. Okay. So here we go. What team would you choose to be the GM of? Would it be the Minnesota Vikings? Would it be the Chicago Bears?
Oh, man.
Would it be the Green Bay Packers?
Oh.
Or would it be, and this one is actually from my cousin, the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, man. Okay, let me just say this.
He didn't pick Miami or Tampa Bay.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, let me just say this.
Minnesota, Chicago, Green Bay, or Cleveland?
I would not say Cleveland because it's just trouble. You have troubled players there that are troublemakers. The franchise has been troubled for who knows how long. So I wouldn't go Cleveland. Plus Baker Mayfield, who knows? I don't know if he's going to be great or not. It's kind of up in the air, 50-50 right now. Minnesota. Okay, Green Bay, just no. I don't even need to explain myself right now. Green Bay is just no.
You know what, Aaron Rodgers? Come on, man.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers is old.
I cannot stand Green Bay.
The Packers are going to draft a quarterback in the first round this year. Watch it happen. That's what they do. They had Favre for a long time, and they drafted Aaron Rodgers, and he sat behind Favre, and then Aaron Rodgers has had his time now. They're going to draft their quarterback this year. He's going to sit behind Rodgers, and he'll go on to be great for 15 years. It's what the Packers do. But I wouldn't say the Packers because it's the Packers. Minnesota, not really vibing with Kirk Cousins. They don't have a ton of draft capital. And I know the Bears don't either, but I got family that lives in Chicago.
So you can deal with it.
You got the monsters of the Midway back. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think I would go to Chicago.
Trubisky too is your quarterback, huh?
Oh,
And I would take Mitch Trubisky and I would put him on a rocket ship and send him to the moon.
You got Nick Foles now. You're all set.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Nick Foles and the Chicago Bears and my second round draft pick. That's what I would do.
All right, cool. All right, Todd, this next choose one is for you. Now, one of the things that I have enjoyed the most about you and getting together with you is that we always eat really well when we get together. And typically when we do get together, we head up to Fenton and we pick out one of those posh restaurants up there. So with that being said, just you alone, can only eat from one of these next 4 restaurants for the entire year, every single meal, okay? So breakfast, lunch, and dinner from one of these next 4 restaurants from Fenton. The first one is The Laundry. The second one is Crust. The third one is La Marsa. And then the fourth one is, and then this one Brett was able to join us with, The Meeting Place. Remember that? They had like, hey, do you want a donut hamburger? It's like a hamburger patty in between 2 donuts.
I had that one. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I had to work out for like 3 weeks to try to get it out.
Exactly. All right. So which one of those?
You know,
just you, not like the rest of your family.
Not the family, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it was the family, it'd be an easy one.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think I could go with The Meeting Place because within a week I probably wouldn't be able to walk. So they don't have a lot of healthy choices there.
Not many.
So it wouldn't be The Meeting Place. You know, I think the Laundry's a little bit too yuppie for me.
Gotcha.
I like the food there. It's really good food. But they're just so yuppie-ish that I have a hard I'm never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to become a country guy.
There you go, man. You got that gun range in your backyard. So.
What I'm saying. So I guess I'm down to La Marsa and Crust.
I love La Marsa.
The only holdback I've got right now in La Marsa is I'd have so much garlic that I don't think it's going to touch me. There wouldn't even be hugs going on. It'd be pouring out.
There's your social distancing solution right there.
But it's so yummy. I think I'd go with La Marsa because they got a mixture. So even if I wanted a burger, I could get a burger. But their food is so good, and I feel so good after I eat it that I think I'd probably end up there. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds good. Cool. All right, Todd. So you are our special guest of honor. You are the very first guest here at Two Pastors in a Pod. So we want to welcome you. We want to thank you for joining us today. Now, you are a man of many hats. You hold many different roles. You have many different roles in your life. So just kind of want to take the next few moments here. I want to go through each and every single one of those particular roles. I want to ask you a question about each of them. Are you down with that?
Yep, let's go.
Okay. So there's nothing in specific order here from like least significant to significant. I'm just going to work my way down here. So first of all, you were a PK. You were a pastor's kid, right?
Yeah.
So you were the son of the one and only Pastor Gary Evans, my predecessor.
Or, as we call him at our church, the good Reverend Doctor.
The good Reverend Doctor. I like that. I think I may start referring to him as that as well. All right. So I know this is a very general question, but what was it like growing up as a pastor's kid? Or you can take a pass if you want.
I'm still a pastor's kid, it never ends. You still end up being the pastor's kid. It is definitely different, and you experience, at least from within the church, you do have to deal with a higher expectation of your behavior, of your spiritual nature, of your religious knowledge. There's just this automatic built-in hey, he's the pastor's kid. Well, he can pray. He knows the Bible forwards and backwards. He's probably got it memorized like Paul.
A lot of assumptions then, yeah.
He's basically the Pope already. So, we'll do it. And so there was always that. Obviously, some people were within churches, and I grew up in 3 different churches as a PK. And so obviously this is generalizing quite a bit, but not everybody had those expectations. And
yeah,
but yeah, the idea, the concept of the fishbowl definitely kicks.
Gotcha.
Then it kicks into when you're out in public too. Once you're, when I was in school and your friends start learning what your dad does, and then it's
right,
who you automatically are or should be. And
yeah. Did you sense your friends at school like keeping you at an arm's length, so to speak, because you were the pastor's kids? No, I'm just curious.
I sensed that from the kids from our church, actually.
Oh, really?
The kids from our church and our youth group and such would keep their distance from me at school. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
The other kids actually, especially once I got into high school, when you get into high school, you start figuring out kind of who you are. You start being a little bit more comfortable with who you are. And so maybe that was it too. But, my friends there, they would know I'm a PK, and it wasn't that big a deal. It kind of deterred them from asking me to do things that, that were probably going to be wrong choices.
Right.
But it was actually the kids from church that would keep their distance from me and would, I remember several of them would barely say hi to me.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Do you think being a PK played a role in you going into ministry when you grew up and got older? Because I know there's this stereotype that not all PKs, but that PKs are troublemakers, right? And that they're rebels and stuff like that. It's obviously a massive stereotype. But did being a PK play a role in your desire and in your call ultimately into ministry?
It did, but in the opposite way. So being a PK actually played a role in postponing me entering ministry, because I was never going to be a pastor. I was never going to do this. I didn't want to. I'd watched my dad do it my whole life, and there was no desire to do it. All I had, so I go to Taylor. I'm doing my undergrad work. I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And all I knew was I had this huge desire and passion to make a difference in people's lives. And I wasn't sure what that would look like. And so because I started thinking about ministry, so I took a youth ministry class, but I just went, no, I don't want to do that. And so I went into teaching to still have an impact on people's lives. But it actually did the opposite for me. I didn't want any desire to go into the ministry. In fact, I was let's see, I'm old now, so
you watched Friends growing up, so
I was I think let's see, 2015 years ago, so I was 30 before I even went to seminary.
Yeah.
So it was just God had to shut every other door and possibility before I was willing to look at what he was really calling me to.
That's good. All right. You have mentioned earlier that you are in the midst of taking classes. You're working on your second master. So one of the other hats that you wear is of a student. You are a student. Tell us a little bit about that. How many classes are you taking right now? What are you working on? And what's your favorite class right now?
My degree I'm going for is a master's in practical theology, to combine that with my master's in ministerial leadership.
Through what school?
Gives me an MDiv equivalent.
Okay.
And I have an amazing church that they offered to take care of the cost for it. So I pay for my books.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And so, there was just a desire to know more.
Yeah.
I get periods in my life where I feel like, I'm just too stupid about these things. I need to know more.
That's me like every day.
So, I wanted to know more. So I got into that. I'm right now in my third class. It's only a 36-hour degree.
Yep.
I'm in my third class. It's intro theology. And even though it's probably my favorite so far, I really enjoyed, I've had church history now. I enjoyed that class, being that I was a history teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy history, but I've enjoyed theology in that it has challenged me to think through things that I probably would not have thought through.
Yeah.
Not that it changes any beliefs, it's just more into the why and
Yep.
what's for it. And then I get to argue with the author of one of the textbooks. And
You
I'm
like
going to
doing
be
that.
contacting my dean, because I don't think my school claims to be of Wesleyan tradition, which Wesley really in his heritage was basically a Reformed theologian.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here I am reading a book that's the main textbook from a Princeton professor who regularly references Black liberation theologians, feminist theologians.
Yeah.
His
James
whole
Cone, yeah.
chapter of systematic theology on creation was not about creation, it was about global warming and climate change.
So very liberal.
So he's very liberal, and there was one point he says, it's just very well documented that the Genesis account was basically just a bunch of stories and it's not true. And I'm going,
Yeah.
what? So I've done that and argued with and my professor and I have on a couple of different occasions not agreed on things, and but he's been very understanding, and he's actually, the last time I disagreed with him, which I went 3 for 3 in the first 3 weeks of class. I disagreed with him on something. But on the third one, he said, no, I was looking for someone to push back.
Oh, so he was hoping that someone would step up. Yeah, good.
So, and being that, I'm not like a lot of the other ones where they need to get this degree so they can go get their job.
Right.
There's a little less like, bring it, man.
Yeah, that's cool. I've always thought about that, going back to school, even like undergrad, knowing the stuff that I know now as a senior pastor and, having 15 years of full-time ministry underneath my belt, how differently I would approach just class, and like assignments, and, even my responses, my answers would probably differ dramatically from what I was 15 years ago, a know-it-all,
Well,
so.
and I've struggled with, I've only had one professor. I've had 4. I had 2 in my first class, and only one of them has as much or more pastoral experience than me.
Yeah.
And so I did have to struggle. I was telling Brett earlier, I had to struggle through, I guess, a respect for them as they're trying to tell me how to pastor, and they've been a pastor for a half or a third of the time that I've been a pastor.
Right.
And not have an attitude towards them, because even though they may only pastor 5 years, there's probably still something that I could learn from them, glean from them, even if they did something wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I've had to work through that, but there are times that it kind of flares itself up and you go, you know what, I've been there, done that. And, I don't, no offense, I don't want to listen to you. So.
Gotcha. That's probably Brett, what he's thinking of us right now. So, all right, moving on to the third hat here. This hat, obviously, you are a pastor. So, how has ministering and pastoring your church during this time been a challenge to you?
Oh,
I should say, what's the biggest challenge that you've faced ministering during the shutdown, or maybe one of the biggest frustrations that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I think they're 2 and 1, and I would bet yours is probably similar. How in the world do you still stay connected to your people?
Yeah.
Normally I'd be on visits. I'd be seeing them every Sunday. I'd be seeing them when they're,
midweek.
Small groups going on all week long, and I'm in my office, and so I'm seeing them all week long, and I'm going to visit those that can't really get out or get out very well, and now it's just boom. And those that do have the wherewithal with technology are able to communicate with me with text or whatever.
Yeah.
or on Facebook even, you know, they'll do stuff there. But I think the biggest challenge is just that disconnect that you get physically, that you don't see them. I mean, I don't know about you, but the weirdest thing is getting up there to preach and there's no one in the pews. I got two guys in the sound booth, and it's just like, what? I'm used to all this, you know, feedback and interaction, and there's just nothing. And then I go back and look at the live stream later, and I see all the comments that I would have heard.
Exactly.
But I don't hear because they're just typing them on there. And so it's just, I think the biggest challenge is just a total disconnect.
Yeah.
That person.
I was telling Brett last week or a couple of weeks ago, I've noticed, especially the last couple of sermons that I've preached, that they've been shorter. I'm normally long-winded, as most other pastors are, but for me, my sermons were probably like 25, 30 minutes when typically they're like 40 minutes, and I'm like, man, what the heck? I take a look at my notes, they're same amount of length as my other previous sermons, and it comes down to just having that interaction.
Something about the people
in the sanctuary.
I don't know if the Spirit pours out more or something, but normally I have my notes. My notes are, I haven't ever seen your finished notes. I've only seen your Greek gibberish. But my finished notes are nicely outlined in my Word document. And I'm
able to pull some out here right now.
For word, what I'm going to say, I allow the Holy Spirit to kind of, okay, here's where I think he's taking me, but sometimes I'll go on a tangent. But yeah, I'll have the same 3 pages of notes. Typically gives me about 30 to 40 minutes, which is about how much time I've got. And it's, just Sunday, I'm sitting up there and I actually had 5 points in my message. I don't ever have 5 points. I normally have 4.
Right.
And next thing I know, I'm 20 minutes into the message and I'm into my conclusion and I'm going, wait, I'm not supposed to be in my conclusion.
Exactly.
What is this about? And we were done a little early, and it was just kind of, it's just a big difference not having them there. It's just not the same.
Our people, they're going to conspire with each other and be like, okay, we want pastors to have shorter sermons, so we're only going to send half of the people into the sanctuary.
We're all going to sit at your church. I'll be in the gym and you'll be in the sanctuary.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, that was the third. The fourth hat that you wear, and I would say that this is the most important, and this is the one I probably should have started off with this interview, but you are a family man. You are a husband and you are a dad. So tell us a little bit about your family here.
Married to a wonderful woman
too.
Huh?
I said you just had a new addition.
I did, yeah. So he's getting pretty big. He was just upstairs a couple of minutes ago screaming, probably because it's about nap time.
Yeah.
Being that Josh is 10 years behind the next one, I think he's going to be almost like that first child type.
Yeah.
And he is, he's a hoot, and he's really, and we've been struggling with that. He doesn't really see anybody else. He just sees his parents and his sisters. And my parents have basically missed the last 3 months of being.
I was going to say a few months at least, yeah.
Because of all this, and so I'm sending text messages with videos and pictures and stuff so they can see him doing things. Like he just ate his first kind of real food yet last night. Had some chicken nuggets.
I was going to say those donut burgers from the meeting place.
There you go, buddy. Well, the last time he was at the doctor, so Josh was born, he was big anyways. And when people were getting gifts for him and clothes, we said, don't bother with newborns because none of our babies have been small enough to wear newborns. And so he was big. He was almost 10 pounds when he was born. And he went to the doctor this last time a couple weeks ago, right after the first shutdown. We had a doctor's appointment for a checkup like the next day. Which, by the way, if you want to go to Brighton, now's the time because there was, Grand River.
No traffic. Yeah.
Super busy. There was nobody on the road, and that's right where the pediatrician is. But the doctor walked in, looked at him, and goes, "Oh, he's going to be a big one." So I got 4 kids. Josh is the youngest, is 7 months, and then I've got Jordan, who's 10. Um, she's my soccer basketball player.
Yeah.
And then I've got Jade and Jazz, who are 16 and almost 15, and they're both mainly varsity swim and varsity track.
Mm.
Very cool.
And my wonderful wife, who we've been married 17 years this summer.
Very cool.
There have been some challenges. She loves this. She goes, she's like, I'm going to be completely selfish. This is the best ever.
Yes.
It's not going anywhere. We're all just home. She loves being home with her family, going out and doing projects and, working on stuff. But it's definitely still been a challenge, being here. My 2 older ones are still working part-time at a local bakery that's still been open. They serve food and salads and soup.
Carry out stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have a drive-through and a carry-out, and they mostly work in the back, baking things and washing dishes and stuff. But it's a really neat family, Christian family that owns it. And the woman there is she has another store in Holly. So if you go to Holly, go to a place called Cupcakes and Kisses.
Okay.
They got.
Well, I've heard of that place before. Okay, cool.
So she's got one in Owasso and then one in Holly, and so there's still been some of that. So we're still out and about a little bit.
Yeah.
And I always make sure I carry my badge with me so that if I get pulled over,
No,
that's okay. I'm supposed to be out.
There we go. I'm essential here.
So. Hey, soon, Todd, your son will be hooping it up with us on Thursday nights at HCC.
Thursday nights, basketball.
I know. I keep telling Amber I got to work out so that when this kid's 10, I can wrestle with him and I'm not, breaking my back or something.
Listen, we need someone to challenge Pastor Dan in the paint because I'm the only other one that plays defense on Thursday nights, and Dan, he's a handful for me too down there. So he's got some weight on me there. So I
channel my inner Bill Lambier every Thursday night.
It's so true. It's a battle down there. So
you use that rear end and you move people around.
That's right, man. And you got to throw the bows too.
Right.
That's it. Yeah. So
not like these sissies playing ball today that you can't go like this. The good old days when you could rebound and jack those elbows out.
Everyone who's out there on the court besides Brett and myself, they think that they're Steph Curry. So they pass the half court line and they're heaving up threes. And I'm like, you guys are a bunch of idiots.
Jordan played her first time. So I'll say, I know we're going to move on. Jordan played her first season of basketball this year. And it was a co-ed team. And she had this kid on her team. He's a good kid. He was the best player on the team. But he had a little attitude, and a little I'm awesome. And there were a half dozen times, and this kid's 10, 11 years old, they're playing on 10-foot hoops, full court, where he would just cross half court and just jack it.
Yeah.
For just no reason. Just boom! And that thing would rocket off that rim. And I'm just going, what in the world are you doing?
It's the Steph Curry revolutionizing basketball for everyone nowadays.
It's not the MJ revolution where you drive to the basket and dunk it. Now it's just jack the three and
close your eyes, hope and pray it goes in.
Hey, they're showing the Bad Boys part of the Michael Jordan documentary next Sunday. They're going to show Lambier and Mahorn and all those guys, Isaiah. So that'll be a fun watch because that was some man's basketball back then.
MJ getting the beat down on that one.
That's right. Oh my gosh, good stuff. All right, so the last hat that you wear, or at least the last hat that I'm aware of, is that you are a chaplain. You are a chaplain for the police department in Shiawassee County.
Yeah, the sheriff's office.
The sheriff's office.
Yep.
And so we thought that this particular topic we're going to talk about next is pretty relevant, and you would be providing us with some pretty good insight as to how we as Christians, we are to take a look at this scenario that unfolded here just last week here in the state of Michigan. And you referred to it as, what was it, throw down in the mitten? Yeah. So last week, I believe it was last Wednesday, there was 4 sheriffs here in the state of Michigan, from Leelanau County, from Benzine County, from Manistee County, and then also from Mason County. They put out a a statement basically saying that they are not going to uphold all of Governor Whitmer's executive orders. And they said that, they understand, and I'm quoting here from their statement, while we understand her desire to protect the public, we question some restrictions that she has imposed as overstepping her executive authority. And then later on, they say, as a result, or excuse me, later on, they say, each of us took an oath to uphold and defend the Michigan Constitution as well as the U.S. Constitution and to ensure that your God-given rights are not violated. We believe that we are the last line of defense in protecting your civil liberties. And so that's or not the end of the quote, but just the end of the quote from what I'm, saying here today. So this is something that we've been talking about here on Two Pastors in the Pod. How are we as Christians supposed to react to and interact with the governor's orders to shut down, to stay home, stay safe? And then you have this unfolds just last week where you have two officials, we got four sheriffs here in the great state of Michigan basically saying, we're not going to listen to all of her orders here. Now, at first, I got to be honest, I didn't really know exactly where the authority line was when it came to Governor Whitmer and then the sheriffs. I thought that the sheriffs were underneath Governor Whitmer, but that's not the case. They are elected officials. They report and they are held responsible to the citizens here in the great state of Michigan, and then ultimately, like they said there, to the U.S. Constitution. So you have like these two authority figures kind of facing off with each other last week. Yeah. So I just, we wanted to bring you on here. I'm just, kind of struggling here with this. How are we supposed to interact with, not just the order now, how are we supposed to, perceive this particular statement put out by these sheriffs?
And Dan, real quick, and Todd, I'll let you jump in a second here, but literally just last Tuesday, we had just talked about this and how the Constitution says this and how Governor Whitmer says this. And then this press release came out that next day.
The next day.
It's not like last week we didn't come up with an answer. We didn't give a definitive answer on, whether we need to submit to the Constitution or the governor or to who. But it was kind of up in the air. We had discussed it. And then literally it was like less than 24 hours later, this statement comes out and applies to exactly what we were talking about. At this point, who do we as Christians submit to? And listen to? What do we do?
Exponential growth in this whole situation with all these protests now.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When was that last Wednesday or last Thursday? There was lockdown on Lansing. I forget. I think that's what they referred to as.
And then you had all those ones throughout the weekend, and then yesterday. And when it comes
Pennsylvania, to
they don't fall under her authority. The only authority she kind of runs is the Michigan State Police, the MSP, and then the Michigan National Guard. And so when her orders first came out, most people didn't realize, and this is why you started seeing police chiefs and a lot of sheriffs came out, and even MSP came out and said, we're not going to be pulling you over. We're not going to be setting up checkpoints. Basically what they told us was her executive order had no teeth. It was totally reliant upon us as people, as citizens, to decide to obey it. And then it was reliant upon your neighbor ratting you out, really. Like de Blasio tried to do in New York.
Right.
And he's getting quite a bit of backlash for that now.
A lot of pushback from that, yeah.
And so I have been a chaplain in 3 different departments. I've met a lot of police chiefs, several different sheriffs, and I was not surprised by that letter by those 4 guys. And I can't speak for my sheriff, who is a great guy, but my experience is I would say probably 90% plus of law enforcement in the state probably feel the same as those 4 guys.
Right.
And they just look at some of it and go, why am I going to stop someone from buying a bag of mulch while they're at Home Depot getting stuff to fix something in their house?
Yeah.
Why am I going to do these things? You had Shelby PD come out after the story came out that they wrote some fine to someone who got mulch at Home Depot while they're getting something else, and they came out and said, no, we didn't. That's completely made up. And so you immediately saw that, and it's just progressed. And I think her latest order, because there was so much confusion in the changes, caused these sheriffs who were probably getting quite a bit of feedback. I know our sheriff's office is getting calls constantly about what people can and can't do. Where can they go? Where can't they go? Are they limited in their time? Are they, and then he's getting calls about, well, this person's doing this, and this store's open over here, and this store's selling this, and they shouldn't be. And so they're trying to deal with that, and most of them are going, we can barely keep up with what we're supposed to do just regularly.
Right. It sounds like it's clogging the system.
Increase in domestic disturbance calls. And so now you're going to say, okay, now you guys got to go enforce this executive order on people, which is just going to add to stress when you interact with those people.
Right.
So I wasn't surprised to see those 4 come out with that statement.
Yeah.
And they didn't say they're not. They're just, hey, we're going to apply common sense.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, if we go back to their statement that they released last week, they acknowledge the needs to reopen the economy. However, at the same time, they also affirmed the seriousness of the pandemic. So it's not like they were completely, pushing aside the governor's orders there. They were still respecting the parts of it that made sense. The other parts of it that are a little confusing or that are just not common sense, just not logical or reasonable. They're just saying, okay, we're just going to let that go for the time being. So, go ahead, Brett.
It's in opposition to our civil liberties. And they said that. They said, we are the last line of defense in protecting your civil liberties.
Yep.
So, like you said, they're not saying, hey, we're totally ignoring the stay-at-home order, but what they are acknowledging is this is wrong, and this is an attack on your liberties, and we're going to stand up for that. Which I thought
they are the final line. So you think about if say, a what-if scenario that a governor or a president comes along, just say the Second Amendment, to take your guns.
Yeah.
Well, the president or the governor are not the ones that are going to come get it. It's law enforcement, it's military. They're the ones that are going to come get it. And so every single thing is reliant upon these guys doing it. And so when I become a chaplain, I take the same oath that a deputy takes. So in Shiawassee County, I'm considered a special deputy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I swore the same oath to defend the Constitution against foreign and domestic, defend the laws of the state. So I took the same oath that they do. And nowhere do we say to defend the president or defend the governor or defend a county executive or whoever.
Right.
We don't.
It comes down to the Constitution that they're defending.
The Constitution only.
Yep. And that's the rub that you see right now. Right now you have the Constitution saying one thing, and then on the other hand, you're saying you're having these governing officials going against it. And these governing officials are supposed to be the ones that are upholding the Constitution, and they're not doing that very thing. So, I am thankful for those sheriffs, and they're recognizing the situation that we find ourselves in here, and they're standing up and they're sticking up for our civil liberties.
Yeah.
So,
like you guys talked about last week, about as Christians, how do we approach all of this? As pastors, how do we approach all of this? And a side note, we're not. I keep hearing this stuff about how we're in unprecedented times. We're actually not. Just go back.
The Spanish flu 100 years ago.
Yeah, they went through something way worse than this. I mean, that Spanish flu was similar to would be like an Ebola outbreak. I mean, it was way worse than this. And my personal opinion in this, why you're getting the uprisings, is one, you're seeing freedom starting to be infringed upon, and it's going on, and it's expanding. And I think a trigger point might have been Easter and the week after, when you had the Louisville mayor telling churches they couldn't even have a drive-in service. You had the Kansas governor telling churches they couldn't meet in any way whatsoever physically, not even a drive-in service. Was it Mississippi or somewhere did the same thing? So
Yeah.
when it became, most people don't know very many amendments in the Bill of Rights and what your rights are, but they do know freedom of religion is one.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people looked at that and went, wait a minute, they're going to take away a person's freedom of religion. I know that's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You're not even going to let them go meet in their cars, but you're going to let the restaurant meet. I think that triggered something where people start going,
Something's not right here.
what else is going to be taken away?
That's
You
a
know,
slippery slope. We talked about that last week. If we're going to start here, where does that go?
Yeah.
You know, a
I
year.
think one of you mentioned your wife said it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a challenge because she is in the hospitals and she is seeing all this stuff firsthand.
But here's the other thing that people aren't getting, and you guys, and I wish I could make the point, because we obviously, having pastored a church in Macomb County, we have quite a few friends out that way. And then, you guys in Highland and Oakland County, but the rest of the state,
You guys are good.
it isn't even the flu.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in our county, we have, as of yesterday, 75 cases.
Yeah.
So 80+% is all confined to those 3 counties. And so everybody down there is seeing it one way. And then they're seeing New York City, which has made the turn. And thank goodness, they didn't need that hospital ship that went in. I think they used like 10 beds in that whole ship.
Did they really? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. Wow.
So that it ended up being that it never reached where they predicted it would be, which I'm glad. But people started seeing that, and then the people out here are going, I don't know, our hospitals are not overwhelmed. We don't.
Yeah.
And I talked to a couple of business owners who take meals to nurses, and they've taken it to 6 or 7 different hospitals all the way down to Beaumont, St. Joe's, and Pontiac. And they're going, the nurses are telling us it's not what you're seeing in the media. In the media, they're portraying Italy with, bodies everywhere and people everywhere. And I'm not saying that there aren't hospitals, especially Southeast Michigan, that are loaded with people, because you have these COVID-19 along with your regular patients.
Yeah. Brett, what does your wife say as far as the status of the hospital where she's at?
Yeah, so actually good news. So they sent out an update earlier, I guess it was late last week, that the curve is significantly on the decline, which is good. I mean, it's definitely starting to flatten, which is good. And also, my wife's floor was a full COVID floor. So every single bed on her floor on 5 North was being used for COVID patients. Late last week, they took it down to half of her floor. So only half of her floor was COVID. And as of, I believe, yesterday, her floor is just no COVID. It's back to being med surg, which is great. So it's definitely on the decline to the point where they've just taken there's no COVID patients on her floor anymore, which is great. And it's declining quickly, which is good.
Yeah. I saw yesterday's was, what was it, just a couple weeks ago, we were close to 2,000 new cases a day, and the last 3 or 4 days have been 500, 600.
Yeah.
And this is just me personally saying this. I don't, because I think a lot of people's fear is this second wave, and everything's going to open up on maybe May 1st. There's going to be a big second wave. They're not really planning for a second wave. So I don't think, the hospitals are really, there might be a small one, but I don't think they're expecting it to spike like it did last month,
Yeah, I think they would be worried about a second wave if they thought, the governor was like, hey, May 1st, we're back to normal. And that's
right.
I started talking to a couple of our elders Sunday. We're trying to set up an elders meeting to start talking about what is our church going to look like, because we can't just jump right back into
same old. Yeah,
back
to normal.
The president's been very direct about that. He's like, we need to do this, but we need to do it right, and that's really important. We need to be careful and wise.
I think they're talking about like the slow reopen. So some of those areas, Todd, where you're at, where COVID-19 hasn't hit as hard, they'll be open much sooner than areas where we're at in Oakland County, and in Detroit. I think there'll be more restrictions for us, than there will be for you come May 1st or whenever it is that they do reopen. And that's, I think, I think that makes sense. So that's pretty reasonable.
But the churches have really battled in this, and how approach this, and like you guys talked last week about how where is our response? Where's our loyalty to, do we have loyalty to the Constitution, the Bible? How do we connect these two? And you guys, went through a lot of scripture, kind of struggling through that. Like, what does it look like? And as I was listening to you, I was thinking about, obviously the history teacher in me kicked in, and I watch it, the society as a whole, as slowly slipping into socialism and communism, and that people forget that you vote your way and secede your way into it, but you have to shoot your way out. And every single time communism and socialism has come into a culture, it's been because people let the government take more and more and more, and then they started going after the churches and families. That's Marx's philosophy. And so as a church, how do you handle it? Like, do we fight it? Do we stand up against it? I mean, it's just, and you guys were talking about submitting to authorities, and I think our country throws another wrench into that, because we always, as pastors, try to look at the context of the scriptures, and it's not just the context of Romans 5:8 with 7 and 9 before it, or chapter 5, or the whole book. You also look at the cultural context,
what's going on in Rome,
the language context, and so we look at all those scriptures, and in the context of those, every single one of them was written in an authoritarian situation. You had an emperor who wasn't elected to position, he took it.
He was a dictator, essentially.
And we don't live in that.
Nope.
My wife's sitting there watching, she goes, yeah, but we don't live in that. We are the authority. And so do we submit to ourselves? Do we submit to the president and governor? Do we submit, as long as they're staying within the Constitution, which is written by many, many Christian men, including preachers, pastors, 250 years ago, who wrote it to protect us. And so it's just.
My deal too, I'm sorry, what was that last part?
I just said I struggle through how much am I going to submit? How much am I going to fight to keep the freedoms I have here in the country? Not selfishly, but as a pastor and as a church, that our freedom, the freedom of this nation, was one of the big factors that God used over the last 200 years to spread the gospel.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, just as I've thought about this more and more over the past week, especially, I've thought about, how the governing officials are, in essence, neglecting the Constitution, and I guess you could say that really shouldn't surprise us, because they are selfish human beings, just like everybody else, and they probably want more and more power, and they see that going on. With that being said, though, you go to like the book of Acts, and you see Paul, he's basically persecuted for his Christian beliefs, for his faith in Jesus Christ. And what does he do as a Roman citizen? Well, he takes advantage of that, and he appeals his case to Caesar, and that essentially gets him to Rome. And so I see Paul exercising his right as a Roman citizen, like, okay, well, I have rights as a U.S. citizen, and I need to be exercising those rights and trying to, as best as I can, uphold the U.S. Constitution, declare what is right, according to the laws of our land here. However, with that being said, there will probably come a point in time where the governing officials, they completely do away with the entire Constitution. I mean, we may have it there, but they may just completely do away with that. And so what is my response supposed to be then? I mean, then that takes us back to, you were talking about socialism. That seems to be the direction that our country, or at least some people in our country, are trying to take it in. I just think to myself, okay, well, if, that kind of takes us one step closer back to where the church was when it first started, 2,000 years ago. And what was Paul's instruction to the Christians in Rome when they were underneath, the rule of that dictator, Caesar? It was, submits to those governing authorities. And so I believe that as we obey God's word as we, listen to his commands, as we try to live our lives according to the scriptures there, that, God will work in his powerful way. That's his means of getting his will done. And you mentioned, right before you were done talking there, that over the last 200 years, we see this growth of Christianity because of the freedoms that we have here in the United States. Well, the same thing could be said 2,000 years ago, underneath, the rule of Caesar, that, Christianity exploded, across the entire Roman Empire, and there's the famous saying, I think it's by Tertullian, you're the history guy here, where he said, oh, I'm going to butcher it now. I used to have it memorized, but now that I'm on the spot, I'm going to mess it up. But anyways, it's like the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, so maybe this persecution that we are heading, that we are entering into here may be good. It may be good in the sense that it weeds out, those individuals who claim to be Christians, but they're really not. And it makes Christians, or I should say the church, get serious about what they believe in. And they see the importance of, okay, we have something that is important here, and that is the gospel of Jesus Christ that we need to get out here, even more so than our freedoms.
Yeah, and look how it's gone since church has had to change.
Yeah.
In the last 4 or 5 weeks, we do our service on live stream on Facebook, and so I'm able to see how many views and everything, and we're able to see how many live views and how many later. Our average attendance is anywhere, 75, 80, 85 a Sunday.
Yep.
Just like you go, you actually have a church of 100. If everyone actually showed up,
oh yeah,
be a higher number. But I go look at the views of our services after 4 or 5 days, and we're 300, 400, 500 views. Now I have no idea if that's 10 seconds of a view or the entire service, but
yeah,
we're able to reach into people's homes where maybe we couldn't. The people in our churches maybe feel a little more gumption to offer that to someone. Hey, here's our church service. Why don't you check it out?
Yeah, here's a link to it. Let me text it to you. Yeah.
And I just want, I want to encourage people that while I am willing to fight for the freedoms I have within the Constitution, within the law, so that I can keep doing what God has called me to do the way he's called me to do it. In the end, we know who wins.
Amen.
We know that the word is going to go out. We know throughout history, like you said, under Rome, you look at modern day China, Iran, any nation that tries to squelch the church and the word of God, it just explodes. You can't stop him.
Right.
And so even if we're moving down that path where we're going to lose freedoms, we fight for them. But in the end, we understand and trust that God is going to take care of it. It's part of his plan. He's going to lead it, and he's going to be successful. And we just pray that he uses us.
Yeah.
I don't want people to be fearful in the midst of this. You need to be hopeful that, because we've got this pandemic, and I'm much less worried about the pandemic than the economic calamity that's going to happen afterwards. I mean, we're going to see numbers we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And yet God is still going to do miraculous things. He's still going to work. He's still going to reach people. And maybe that'll be the thing that drives a revival.
Yeah.
For people to come to God.
Yeah. I mean, I said this from the beginning, this pandemic, I do believe that God is going to use it in a very powerful way in humbling people and making people realize that they're frail, that they're not as strong and as great as they think they are, and that they need a savior. And hopefully this pandemic gets a hold of them, forces them to see the reality of the situation as far as their spiritual life is concerned, and turn to Jesus Christ and recognize him as their true savior. So
it's good.
Todd, it's good seeing you, man.
This isn't the normal meetings. We gotta be able to at least get back to lunch.
That's right. So, well, we got to do this again. I think that you may be a reoccurring guest here on Two Pastors in a Pod.
I was gonna say the next time we have you, you'll be an official recurring guest, which is
Yes,
it'll be maybe our first one.
Yeah.
Right now,
I
you're
even cut my hair for you guys. I got rid of my head for you guys.
I trimmed up my sideburns today. I didn't want them to seem like they were all bushy and everything sticking out.
I was a little worried yesterday. I went up and cut my own hair, and I come downstairs and I'm just waiting for Amber to be like, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
But she did, and I walked out. She goes, "It actually looks pretty good."
There you go. There you go. So.
great.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you, Todd, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I've literally had like 5 people pull up to the church and walk in since we started. So much for social distancing here at HCC. So
Cool. Guys, that was fun. That wraps up episode 5 and our first ever edition of Two Pastors and a Pod with Todd. That's it. All right.
elbow bumps. We got to do elbow bumps.
We have to wrap this up with our elbow bump on 3. 1,
One,
2, 3. Bop. That's
boom.
it. We'll see you guys.
Adios.
Yeah.